Well, welcome back, folks. Welcome to Lot Talk, powered by Lotpop. I'm Chris Keene, one of your hosts, and I am joined by two of the greatest men I know, the co-hosts of Lot Talk, powered by Lotpop, Mr. John Anderson, Mr. Ronaldo Leonard. Gentlemen, I am super excited about what we're going to talk about today. I know I say that every week, and I know every week we're talking about all these great topics we're bringing. But let's make sure we level set right here at the beginning and make sure we remind every single person of why we're doing this. Ronaldo, let the world know why we jump on here every Tuesday on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, why we do what we do.
Man, we do what we do because it gives us an opportunity to give back to the industry that's provided so much for us and our families. When we first, I know about myself and John, we go back a little ways. And so we're fortunate to have made it this long. But I was always told that the people that poured into me, they said I didn't need to give them a thanks. I just needed to pour into others the way that they did for me. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge motivation. Also, There's a lot of opportunity out there to give dealers tools that they need in order to move to the next level. And so I know when we get together on a weekly basis, it's driving us. And that's why we're so excited, because we got that passion and we love what we do.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. But, when we think about you remember the TV show Leave It to Beaver?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You remember when you seen the Beav at the beginning when they were like, introducing the show, and Beav's out there throwing newspapers?
Oh, yeah. Getting to work early, baby.
Putting that work in. He was putting that work in.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I think John was like 19 when that show was out. He probably went to some of the airings of that show and saw that thing back. Man, there's people listening to this call going, leave it to who? What are we talking about?
Oh, yeah.
John, you have got the most wealth of knowledge out of everybody on this call. And quite frankly, out of most everybody inside our company. But that's neither here nor there. The number one reason you jump and say, man, let's do Lot Talk. What is your number reason for doing this?
To much is given, much is required. Right. And I feel very blessed, the people that God has put into my life and my career in automotive and what they've shared with me, the constant coaching that I've received. So, yeah, the fact that we have a platform in today's industry that allows us to give back. Mm-hmm. And hopefully those that are watching and listening hear that and receive that way.
Oh, yeah. I think back to some of those guys that I was surrounded by that poured into me. I had no idea why they were being hard on me and why they were asking me to bring the heat every day. But in retrospect, I see, just to that comment that John just made, that those people were put in my path to build me up, pour into me, so that we can get together, today in the age that we're living in and pass that along. And like John said, it is a tremendous blessing, and I'm thankful for it and grateful for it. And I can't wait to dive into what we have for the folks today.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for just a second here. So the title, and some of y'all may already seen it here, and yep, we named it that, but you're going to understand why here in a minute. Title of today's episode 14, Lot Talk powered by Lotpop. Your baby is ugly. And around that, we're going to be talking about today, gentlemen, your physical lot and your digital lot are out of order. Why? Why are these things out of order? I mean, here's what I think about the pride that we used to have, in our brick and mortar lot. And I'll be frank with you guys. I mean, we've all traveled to the field from these roles, and we've pulled up on some of these dealerships in today's time. And my gosh, I would have thrown a chair through the window. But I think back, you guys remember the walk around contests that we used to have?
Oh yeah.
Remember those walk around, the trophies passed out, hey, the cash that was passed out,
Yeah.
you know, that pride we had in presenting a vehicle. That pride carried over into so many different things, and we made sure our babies weren't ugly. But I think we've gotten away from that a little bit. John, what's your thought?
No, 100%. 100%. We've gotten away from it, and there's various reasons, right? You know, we want our people. Listen, I know areas of the country there are certain areas that I understand that still have some. I'm using air quotes here, but some walk-in customers, right? I get it. There are specifically some areas that do that, but for the most part, 100% of the folks that are ending up in our showrooms are starting out on our virtual lot, right? And so, man, it's just important to understand how important if you're locked in on your bricks and mortar lot, and on every bumper is tight. You look down the row, all the bumpers are in line, and every valve stem cap on every valve stem is there. Nothing's missing. That stuff is you come on that lot, and hey, listen, is it still important on the physical side? It 100% is, because when somebody when a customer finally makes that connection and comes to your lot, when they pull on your lot and that's organized and it's top shelf, right? You're silently communicating to them what type of dealer you are, right? So that's still really important. But if I'm going to spend that much time and attention on my bricks and mortar, I better spend that much time and attention on my virtual lot. And I think a lot of times, now we want our team in there talking to our customers, and now it's not as much standing out on the curb as it used to be, nor should it be waiting on a customer, right? So that time has to be intentional when anything that's spent on that physical lot, the same way that time has to be intentional on that virtual lot and what we're doing and the results it's producing.
Good stuff. Good stuff there. Ronaldo, John and I do all the launch calls for the new clients that we onboard, here at Lotpop. And one of the number one things that we look at each and every time is what their merchandising looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit around how you're coaching that and training on that when we first get a customer here at Lotpop, and those things that we unpack and those things that we see, and maybe some recommendation that you're giving them.
Well, and initially I will go ahead and take a look at that. But the point that I want to drive home once they get into my office is that image that you send out in the world about your dealership is going to dictate whether or not you get an opportunity to have them on the showroom floor. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't we don't project every last vehicle with, as John mentioned, I mean, everything tight and right, you may never have an opportunity to see that customer face to face. So everything that you do with merchandising those vehicles online sends a message to how you do business. And whether in the bricks and mortar situation, you've got everything squared away and it's buttoned up, but you don't project that to the world in your digital dealership, then people start to ask questions about what type of organization you're running or what type of organization they're going to walk into. Because if you're shortchanging your photos, you kind of, pardon my language, but half-ass your description. I know that from when I put my consumer hat on and I see that, I'm like, okay, they missed details on merchandising this vehicle Are they going to miss details on my car deal? How many times am I going to have to go back and re-sign paperwork? Or how many times am I going to have to go back to take care of the titling? Or am I getting frustrated with the fact that it just doesn't run as smooth as it should? So that projection of your image online, I mean, and it's everything that you do, you know, from the $7,000 cash car that you got to $80,000, you know, pickup truck. It's got to be watertight and it's got to be on point. And if you're not projecting that, you're missing the boat. You're missing the opportunity.
Good stuff.
1,000,000%.
Good stuff.
1,000,000%. You know, John, think about when you was running that Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram store up in Indy. And of course, you know, this time of year, you guys didn't get favorable weather. Okay. You're out there pushing snow off cars, things of that nature. You're making sure everything is nice and pretty. So when people pull up on the lot, you don't have a road looking like a sliver in the snake. You don't have a bunch of cars up on the apron, no holes in the front line. You know, if we think about those things right there in all the time that we put in the brick and mortar, but we have exponentially more lead activity and more ups in our digital dealership, why don't we put that same type of effort in the digital dealership? What's your thought?
But I don't know how to answer. I don't know how to answer that question, man. That is the look for us, right there. You know, when we start partnering with a new dealer, right, there are certain things that, Chris, you and I know when we get on that launch call, you know, 95% of the time we're going to see similar stuff, right? And so, you know, you ask a great question there, and I would just say that, you know, this is so important, guys. Think about the time, effort, and energy you stick into getting a car from the time you trade or purchase it to getting it out ready to go, and all the time, effort, and energy you're thinking about on your physical lot. Yet we just don't take that overall. We just don't take that same mindset to the virtual lot. And here's the tricky thing about what you asked, Chris. I know when a customer drives on my physical lot. I know when they're stopping at a vehicle out in my inventory and looking at it, right? And I have an opportunity to direct traffic with that customer and make sure we greet that customer and we talk to that customer and we find out everything. And we're going to put that customer on paper, right? We're going to look at that customer's trade. We're going to manage that, right? And I know we're managing that. But are we taking that same mindset to a virtual customer? And I tell dealers all the time, if I go to review your photos and descriptions, if I thought there was look, and again, I'm going back, think about all that time, effort, and energy that you're spending on your bricks and mortar. If I'm looking at my virtual lot, and if I think there's one thing that could potentially cause a customer to come to my website, how important is that to get them to your website? They're on your virtual lot when they come to your website. So they found you. Let's say they found you on third party. They find you on Auto Trader. They click on the car. Now they're on their website. I thought there was one thing in my photos or descriptions that could potentially cause a customer to leave my website. That's what should be keeping me up at night, right? Because you don't know that customer that come to your website and left, right? You know on your physical lot, but you don't know that customer that come to your website virtually and left, right? So that's why the virtual lot is so much, in my opinion, is so much more important these days, right? Because I don't have the ability to manage that customer the same way I do on my bricks and mortar. And I'm pouring all this time, effort, and energy into my bricks and mortar, and then I'm set it and forget it on my virtual. Man, that's just not going to work. It doesn't work, and we find examples of it all the time. So,
gosh.
Well, and to that question that you just asked, I think that from where I'm sitting, I don't think that we pay that much attention to it because we don't spend that much time there. And it goes 100. Back to the tangibility of, you know, someone coming up on the lot. The only time I would be willing to bet, and I'd like to know the figures, but I would be willing to bet that less than 25% of your general managers or your dealer principals are actually spending time on their website on a regular basis. I mean, they'll walk around the lot every day, once a day, but do they visit their website every day, multiple times a day?
Man, that's a great Ronaldo, man. That's a home run right there, brother. That's a great point.
Well, here, let me lay a bunt down for you and just take one and put it inside home plate. Okay. Right. You pay a third-party site. Yes, third-party, providers. If it sounds like I'm calling you out, I am, because I was there when I worked for one of the listing sites years ago. Let me tell you something, dealers. You're paying a third-party company. You're paying a website company. You pay a company like Lotpop. You pay these companies. They should be coming in behind you and doing that virtual lot walk and making sure that you're, as Ronaldo called it, that you're watertight. But you can't solely rely on them because they're not going to do it all the time. Because if they were, you wouldn't have cars on the third-party sites looking the way they do. So you want to sit there and write that check, write it, but hold them accountable for it. But in the same token, go look in the mirror, take a checkup from the neck up, and go out there and look at your virtual lot and do the same thing. Yep. Because if it's up to you, you wouldn't sit there and spend all the money, but you have to. Why? Because these consumers are on third party. They're on the Google. They're going to your website. For you to sit there and have inventory that looks like garbage, shame on you. Shame on you.
Chris, just real quick, just real life example, because what you're talking about, man, and I hear the fire in your voice, and I agree with you. So I used to have the guy that trained me.
I got to calm down, man. I got to calm down a minute.
But it's an issue, man. It's a major issue.
It is.
It's really one that has to be fixed. It's solvable. It's fixable.
Hey, what's the average customer? How many leads does the average customer send out?
12.
You better be, your lot better be standing tall, right? Because they're looking at your virtual lot. It better be standing tall. But what I was going to say is that the guy that trained me, I had a lot of trainers, a lot of guys that poured into me, but the one guy that he was like my, how your best coaches, man, you always look back at your best coaches and go, man, those guys were hard on me, but I'm so thankful they were hard on me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this guy was that way. This guy was that way for me. You guys know.
I'm gonna call it out. It was Ed. It was Ed.
So Ed used to pull on the lot and pull up in front of the dealership in his car or his SUV or whatever he was driving, and he'd honk the horn, or he'd call me on my cell and he goes, "Hey, Johnny, come on out here and get in the car. Let's have some windshield time." And so Ed would drive me out into the inventory and kind of slowly drive through the inventory and ask me questions. Ed already knew the answer to the questions. Ed wanted to know if I knew, right, about the inventory and maybe what he had found that was not particularly right. And so it was, man, it kept me on my toes, and it was, you knew when Ed pulled up, there was a problem, and you better know where the problem was, right? And so that, to your point, right, how many people are doing that to your point, Ronaldo, GMs, right, owners, right? How many of them are doing that on their virtual site and then going and talking to their managers about, hey, let's talk about your virtual dealership. Let me ask you some questions, right? And making sure that we're inspecting what we expect, right?
Yeah. Man, that's a lost art, John. That is a lost art that needs to be fixed. It honestly needs to be fixed. Brett, because listen, I want to get John and I want to get Ronaldo just as fired up as I am right now. Brett, share the screen. Share the screen. This is a recent dealer that it It looks like an elephant came up behind this thing and sneezed.
Yeah.
It looks
You
like
know what?
it looks like somebody is going to need a cigarette and a cup of coffee.
Coffee. Oh my gosh. Pour me a 3-finger pour of bourbon right now to get over this thing. Okay. Here's the thing.
That's a premiere, all right. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Please tell me.
Here's the crazy part.
Please tell me that's a trade. That's a trade.
No, that's what I was going to tell you, Ronaldo. Here's the crazy part about it. I pulled the vehicle up, and the first one was a profile view. I said, "Hey, is this a fresh trade?" Because the profile view was horrible. They go, "Oh no, that just came out of detail."
Hey, wait a minute, Chris. Stop right there. Dig into that a little bit deeper. When you say the profile view is horrible,
when you saw the profile view of the vehicle, it looked like it was in the shade. It's a black vehicle already. There wasn't a lick of tire dressing on it. The wheel wells were just as bad as the rear hatch of this. It was faced the wrong direction. It wasn't directionally marketed right. And for those that are listening and can't see what we're describing here, I'm showing a rear hatch of a Chevrolet Suburban Premier, black in color, and it looks like they put soap and water on it, but was a little heavy on the soap with no water.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of those days when I would take my car to the car wash and load it up with the quarters. And back in the day, you used to have to actually put money into a car wash if you're going to wash it by hand. But there were several occasions I'd go down in the car wash and didn't have anything but maybe $1.50 to my name, and I'd squirt my vehicle down, have all the soap all over it, and run out of water on the rinse, and just had to roll down the vehicle or roll down the road, with soap residue all over my ride.
Yeah, hoping most of it blew off.
Yeah, until I could get to Big Daddy's water hose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But seriously, this was a quote unquote straight out of detail, frontline ready Chevrolet Suburban. I mean, John, hasn't the rule always been if you advertise a vehicle for $55,000, it needs to look like a $110,000 vehicle?
Well, that's what I was about to ask you, what the price point was. Not that it matters, because really, if it's a $10,000 vehicle, it should be consistent across all your inventory. But yeah. I mean, it needs to, it specifically, look, I don't want to belabor this too long, but specifically online, right? Because I mean, I'm not at a dealership anymore, so I'm a retail buyer just like everybody else, right? And when I'm looking at a vehicle, online, guess what I'm doing while I'm looking at that vehicle? I'm building a picture and a story in my mind of what it's going to look like with me and my family behind the wheel, right? What that vehicle is going to look like in my garage, what the functionality of that vehicle is going to be for me, for what I need it for, right? So I'm building all these pictures in my mind, and then I see this, right? And the first thing I start to think is, me specifically, is, man, what does that thing look like inside? What's the attention to detail paid? And if I go and look at this vehicle, am I going to have to ask them to re-detail this vehicle for me, right? And here's the other thing too. Not everybody's in the same situation, but I live in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. So you guys are familiar. Ronaldo, you're from here. Chris, you're familiar with this city, right? Let's say that thing was down in Joshua, Texas, right? And I want to go look at it. I'm committing all day to go down there. I'm a 3-hour drive from down there and then back. And by the time I spend time at the dealership, right, I'm committing all day to come and look at that vehicle. And this is what I'm seeing in a photo. How likely am I going to go get my vehicle and go drive to look at this vehicle?
Well, that's the point, John. I mean, would you even care if you saw the outside of it that looked like this? Would you you're going to click right off that thing, and you're going to
Yeah, I'm
jump
gonna
on the
bounce.
up bus. You're going to
Yeah, I'm
jump
gonna
on the
bounce.
up bus, and you're going to go to the next dealer.
Yeah, I'm gonna bounce. Definitely.
I mean, look. There's the.
Well,
Yeah.
let me bring up another point. Because, John, you know, if you're looking at that picture, and I just imagine somebody sitting at home coming across this picture, they're either going to keep going to the next vehicle, next dealership, or their mind's already set that, you know what, I bet these guys aren't selling much. I can go in there and work them down about half price. And so that dealer, if you talk to him, it's probably going to tell you, I'm not getting, you know, business is down, my leads are down, and people just aren't spending money. Now, people are not spending money.
But to that point, Ronaldo, I mean, look, here's a wheel and tire. The wheel looks like it's been driving down a gravel road. The tire looks like they just bought it out of salvage yard and threw it on there. And dealers are wondering why their gross is down. Hey, we're in a compressed market right now.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give the margin compression any help.
Yeah.
With this.
Yeah. We're just creating our own obstacles, you know. If you had that vehicle spit shined and polished, everything's in order, your photos are pristine, your description is on point, there's no conversation, you know. And when you look at SRP VDP conversions and it's 6-7%, but you don't have any you don't have any leads on it, why does it not send up a red flag for somebody to dig into their merchandising to find out exactly why? I got all the eyes in the world on this unit, but nobody's coming down to test drive it. And it's things like this.
Well, think about
when's
this,
the last
John.
time? Go ahead, Chris. Sorry
John,
about that, buddy.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Think about this for a minute, John. Okay, let's go old school for a minute, and let's think about a telephone book. Now, Brett, who is our producer and COO, he's going, a telephone what?
I've heard about those.
What's a telephone book?
Yeah. So I want you to think about this for a minute. Okay, think about a phone book. And when you flipped in the yellow pages, everything was in alphabetical order. Remember that?
Yep.
And right next to each other in the phone book was attorneys and auto dealers. Two of the most hated professions in the world. If I'm going to tell you that it's an all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, have adaptive cruise, Android Auto, et cetera, do you think they're going to 100% believe me? Or are they going to want to see it too?
Everybody's from Missouri when it comes to shopping online for cars. Show me.
Yeah, if you think any different than that, man, you better check yourself, because I mean, how many times have we been in a situation where we basically got caught when a customer showed up to the store, and they were furious because the average customer is spending 14 to 16 hours online, and while they're doing that, they're building up a lot of energy and effort and what they feel like that vehicle is going to be like. And so we've all had experience where a customer showed up to our store and what they felt was not what actually happened, and they were furious. So don't think for a second that customers aren't online looking at your comments and then going to verify that is on the vehicle and it's working before they ever come out of their house and decide to make a trip to your store, because they've all had experiences that were not so good, like you talked about with attorneys and auto dealers.
Oh
yeah. John, I mean, like this right here, what I'm showing on the screen, the key features. Okay. Yep. All-wheel drive, adaptive cruise control, this, that, another. And then in the custom comments, we like to use the vid explosion or the fancy name, whatever it is for the General Motors product. Let's put it in this perspective for a minute. OnStar, Uconnect, Sync. 3 different names for 3 different manufacturers that do the same functions, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When 81% of the consumers are buying something completely different than what they originally started out looking at, and when brand loyalty over the last 4 to 5 years has diminished, but we're sitting there describing Ford Sync, and I'm coming out of a Suburban, and what I really want to know is, does this thing have the satellite radio, the navigation? Does it have all of these things that I got with OnStar? But do we show it? Do we talk about it? Or do we just show it and don't describe it? Or do we describe it and don't show it? More times than not, what we see in these launch calls when we're going through the merchandising, it's one of those two. I would arguably tell you 75 to 80% of the time, John, they either show it and don't describe it, or they describe it and don't show it. 25% of the time, they do both. So if you're listening and watching on this call, if you take anything away from today's call, describe the car in layman's terms of what it is and show them what you're describing.
Right on.
John?
Spot on. Spot on. You know, hey, Chris, you and I did a little last week, right? You and I were doing a little research ourselves, right? And we went to 2 of the major players. One being Amazon. You wouldn't think Amazon's a major player, but they're back in the car business again, right? So we looked at Amazon, we pulled them up and looked at them, and then we also pulled up CarMax and looked at those stores. And what surprised us, Chris, when we saw with those two major players?
Oh, the number one thing. Here was the number one thing. Here's the car. Here's the hot buttons. Here's the buying motives. They didn't throw out there this big, long, laboring description of it's raven black and you're going to rave about this color and it is going to pull you every prom date that you've ever wanted back in high school. It ain't doing that. I'm driving 60 miles an hour down the road on my telephone and I find the vehicle on a 6-inch screen here and I'm scrolling through. And what I'm trying to do is, does it have the options I'm looking for? But I got to dig through 90 million, adjectives and descriptions of this vehicle. Hey, those are great and all. And do you need to have some of those things in there for SEO? Do you need to have some of those things in there for compelling and to stand apart? Yes, you do. But there has to be a balance. And when you talk about the number one and arguably the number 1A used car dealers out there, they get right to it. They tell you, it's this car with these options. Here's the option. Here's the picture. Period. Into paragraph.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Chris. I think that's why when I said we were surprised, right? Look, for the longest time, we talked about with dealers, we were coaching them on, right, meta tagging and things like that. But as it always happens, right, things change over time, right? And so algorithms are changing, right? And so some of those things the strategies that we talk to dealers about aren't as important or ranking as much. So we have to change with the times. And here's one other thing I would throw in here. Dealers, if you're not checking your website, if you're not heat mapping your website, if you're not looking at Google Analytics on your website, right? There's a lot of insight that you can gain from that. And I specifically said dealers and GMs. looking at that,
Yeah.
right? How are people moving around your website? Where are they clicking at? Am I moving things around? I used to move things around, but I'd see people clicking on my used car. I heat map my website, and I'd see my used car inventory was getting a lot of clicks, and I moved that button around to see a certain place on my website. Did it get more attention? Was it easier to find, right? These are all things that are important, right? Google Analytics are going to tell you, it's going to tell you your bounce rate on your website. If your bounce rate's high on your website, right, it's also going to show you average time on your website. So if I got a low average time and my bounce rate's high, what's that telling me as a dealer or a general manager? I need to be looking at some things that are going to get more time on, increased time on site and lower that bounce rate. So yeah, all these things that we're bringing, and to Chris's point, right? These two major players, man, Amazon, right to the point. Here's the car, here's the price, here's the equipment.
Yeah. Here's how you can buy it.
Right. And here's how we'll deliver it to you.
Yeah. I mean, it's just boom, boom, boom. And in the world that we live in today, because there's so many things we could go do and get the information that quick, but yet we don't meet the customer where they're at, which I don't understand. I mean, think about this for a minute, Ronaldo. What I'm showing on the screen here now is the complete polar opposite of the first three things that I showed on here that were awful. And here's a really great performing dealer. They show what it would look like when I walked up on the vehicle on the lot. They show what it would look like when the salesperson opens the door up and what it's going to look like when I'm getting in this vehicle. They show what it looks like when I sit in the cockpit. Then they start getting into hot buttons and buying motives, the features, the advantages. And then I didn't take a screenshot of it, but then they talked about the benefit of those things. Ronaldo, from a training standpoint, from a deliverability standpoint, from just an overall automotive standpoint,
yeah.
I mean, how does that speak? What does that do?
Well, I mean, it's an experience. We were always taught how to do a walk around, and 90% of salespeople that have ever had any success in the automotive industry, they had a prescribed way that they did a walk around with a prospective customer. And it was all built behind driving an experience. And those dealers that are successful with a digital dealership and have world-class merchandising on their units, they've stayed with the same formula. They are just recording it digitally with these images, placing them in that order, because it gets people's senses involved in what they're doing and what they're looking at. And so from a training perspective, we've just taken a time-tested and proven method to introduce somebody to a vehicle and given them a digital experience. And I would promise, once again, I'm not a betting man, but I'll throw this out there. I'd be willing to bet that if someone showed up at that dealership, that walk around that you got at that dealership is going to mirror that digital experience that you had on the website. And if it didn't, I'd be very surprised, very surprised. But it's all about connecting dots. I mean,
yes,
we were all raised in the business around one mantra: the feel of the wheel seals the deal.
Yep.
And that is exactly what they're doing with these digital images. They are having somebody experience or imagine what it's going to feel like to walk around that vehicle, sit in that cockpit, push those buttons, adjust the mirrors, and strap that seatbelt on and take it for a ride. And it works. I mean, it works because you're getting, a tactile experience without actually being there. And that's how you set it up. Now you follow it with your descriptions that are also going to lend into that virtual experience. It's almost like having those VR goggles on, as you're just flipping pages. But the more senses you get involved, and that's what those pictures are designed to do in that sequence, give that tactile experience, or kind of, cultivate that experience that we always wanted to duplicate when we were right there in front of a prospect and walking around that vehicle. Let them have that same experience while they're shopping online.
Ronaldo, if I rolled this tape back, you probably said experience 25 times in that 90 seconds or so.
Yeah.
Listeners, viewers, another nugget. Experience. Provide a digital experience that emulates what you would do inside the brick and mortar if you were belly to belly, chest to chest, able to talk feature, advantage, benefit with the customer at your brick and mortar. Do the same thing inside your digital dealership. John, 90 seconds or less. We got to get rolling here. Bring us home. Recap us. Let the listeners know what time it is here.
It'll be real quick. I'll make it real quick. If it's important to you on your bricks and mortar, it better be 100 times more important to you on your virtual lot. You're going to invest time, effort, and energy on your bricks and mortar the way I know every dealer is doing. You better invest time, effort, and energy on your virtual lot, because I can promise you, you're not getting the attempts that you want to get on your bricks and mortar lot because you're not investing the same time, effort, and energy on your virtual lot. And people are leaving your lot and they're not completing the process of showing up on your bricks and mortar. Bottom line. We got dealers. We got to get better at managing our virtual lots. We have to. Hands down. And again, this is coming from a group of three guys here that see this every day. We just have to get better. We have to get better.
Absolutely. That was spot on, John. I'm going to pass the offering plate. The Oregon is playing. You've just thrown it down on us. Listeners, viewers, I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of Your Baby is Ugly, because it is in most cases. And you got a hair out of place. You got a piece of clothing on wrong. Go fix it. Fix it today. Fix it now. If you need any assistance with this, please reach out to us. Each and every day, we are here to give you more and more and more. So you can find us at lottalkpodcast.com. You'll find John's info, Ronaldo's info, my info. We are happy to jump on with you. Look us up, try us out. We'll give it to you for free. All of this knowledge, we'll spend as much time as you want. I'm Chris Keene. On behalf of my co-host with us today, Mr. John Anderson, Mr. Ronaldo Littard, we thank you for tuning in. Catch us at the same time, same channel, same way next week for another episode of Lot Talk, powered by Lotpop. Much success. Have a great week, guys.